Hello, leaders of Scientology. We are anonymous. Over the years, we have been watching you. Your campaigns of misinformation, your suppression of dissent, your litigious nature, all of these things have caught our eye. With the leakage of your latest propaganda video into mainstream circulation, the extent of your malign influence over those who have come to trust you as leaders has been made clear to us. Anonymous has therefore decided that your organization should be destroyed. For the good of your followers, for the good of mankind and for our own enjoyment, we shall proceed to expel you from the internet and systematically dismantle the Church of Scientology in its present form. We recognize you as serious opponents, and do not expect our campaign to be completed in a short time frame. However, you will not prevail forever against the angry masses of the body politic. Your choice of methods, your hypocrisy and the general artlessness of your organization have sounded its death knell. You have nowhere to hide. Because we are everywhere. You will find no recourse in attack. Because for each of us that falls, 10 more will take his place. We are cognizant of the many who may decry our methods as parallel to those of the Church of Scientology. Those who espouse the obvious truth that your organization will use the actions of Anonymous as an example of the persecution of which you have for so long warned your followers. This is acceptable to Anonymous. In fact, it is encouraged. We are your SPs. Over time, as we begin to merge our pulse with that of your church, the suppression of your followers will become increasingly difficult to maintain. Believers will become aware that salvation needn't come at the expense of their livelihood. They will become aware that the stress and the frustration that they feel is not due to us, but a source much closer to them. Yes, we are SPs, but the sum of suppression we could ever muster is eclipsed by that of your own RTC. Knowledge is free. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
Good morning and welcome to Cult Watch. My name is Brent Whetstone and we're broadcasting to you live today from Target 2. Now this broadcast is dated 27 July 2013 and it's made on an island in the sea and it's addressed to all staff and students of Scientology organizations, Anonymous, and the general public. The background noise that you hear is not an actual fact tape noise. It is the wind howling up a cliff and hitting over the sea where I am sitting. Out before me here is a wild blue sea with ships passing by, a few fleecy clouds overhead, and the bright sun shining down. Now I'm giving you this short talk because you might have wondered what has been going on. Rumor lines are not very reliable, to say the least, and in a world which is as wogged as this one, are not likely to even approach truth. And I do not like to create mystery with regards to our activities. Again, good morning and welcome to Cult Watch. Today's program is dedicated to Anonymous. And we started the broadcast today with a message that was broadcast on the internet in 2008. Now, unfortunately, I didn't come across this message until I was already a year and a half into my staff contract, and I started to investigate what Anonymous was. And the only thing that prompted me to investigate what Anonymous was a short video clip that the church actually put out, talking about what Anonymous was doing. So I'll play that a little bit later on in the broadcast, but I like to share stats, and I think I got my my joy of sharing stats from watching all the videos of David Miscavige sharing the stats of the Church of Scientology. Now, most of us know that those stats are way overinflated, but what I'm going to do with you today is I'm going to share some stats on Anonymous, and I thank my listeners who contributed to these stats. Thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have a program today. So I'm going to share some stats with you that are accurate and legitimate stats. These are not inflated like the Church of Scientology stats that we see at every single major event where the great leader of Scientology, David Miscavige, is up. So, stat number 1, 200 is the number of anti-Scientology activists, and that number is growing every single day. People are coming out They're coming from behind the mask and they're stepping out to share their story of what it was like on the inside of Scientology. And they're doing it because of the activities of Anonymous. If it wasn't for Anonymous, people would not have had the guts to step out to the forefront and talk about the abuse on the inside. Now, 600, now that's the number of Anons who raided in London alone on February 10th of 2008. 7,000 is the total number of Anons who raided Scientology in over 100 cities in over 30 countries around the world. 11,000 is the peak number of Anons raiding by the end of the summer of 2008 before they stopped counting. 72,238, the number of members of the Why We Protest message board. 2,003,619 is the number of posts on Why We Protest. Now, if you're not familiar with Why We Protest, Google it, look it up. It's great, a great resource for what goes inside Scientology. And just a correction to my statistics, 200 was the number before the rise of Anonymous in January of 2008. I apologize for that. So Anonymous, I owe a big thank you to, because the information that was leaked by Anonymous and that has continued to be leaked was what enabled me to get out of the Church of Scientology. As you heard in last week's broadcast, my wife did a lot of research on the Anonymous message boards, and she actually was in contact with former staff members, former public of the Church of Scientology, and they actually helped coach her how to get me out, what some of the warning signs were that I was getting in too deep, and just general support. So it's much appreciated, Anonymous. It's because of you that I am free today. And I believe wholeheartedly that it's because the information that Anonymous has put out there that we're seeing so many high-level executives and celebrities leave Scientology, and they're willing to speak out. And it's wholeheartedly because of you, because this information was not out there. We were encouraged to avoid the internet in general because there's a lot of black PR on there for Scientology. So they recommended that we stay off of sites that would talk down about Scientology. This, of course, made me curious, and I did a little bit of research and started to find some things out. Now, my experience with Anonymous while I was in Scientology was very limited. There were a few times that there were protesters outside of the Cleveland Mission and the Buffalo Org when I went out there. But as I told you last week, there was one sign that really stuck and resonated with me, and it was the sign that said, "Religion is free and Scientology is neither." And I sat there and I thought on that. And it just made so much sense to me that here I am paying for my salvation to this church. Nowhere in the history of religion has a church charged for your salvation. Now, I know in a lot of churches they encourage you to tithe at 10% of your income, but they're not going to throw you out and they're not going to refuse teaching to you if you don't do that. But in Scientology, if you don't pay, you don't get saved. And one of the first leaks that I saw as I was going up the bridge in Scientology that was put out, so be listen, there's some strong language in it, And after we listen to it, I want to pick apart a few things, and I want to tell my listeners from a Scientology staff person's standpoint what
A message from Anonymous is sent to the Church of Scientology.
Leaders of Scientology, we are anonymous. Anonymous has therefore decided that your organization should be destroyed. For the good of your followers, for our own enjoyment, we shall proceed to expel you from the internet and systematically dismantle the Church of Scientology in its present form.
To justify inciting others to commit hate crimes against the Church, Anonymous claims the right to free speech contained in the First Amendment, while showing contempt for the first part of that same amendment that guarantees the freedom of religion. Their attacks start on January 17th. Anonymous illegally brings down Church of Scientology public information website. Attacks continue for 5 days, and a barrage of harassing phone calls begins.
You fucking kill yourself.
Did you hear me, bitch?
Death will come, death will come, death will come.
January 18th. 241 harassing phone calls. Obscene faxes. Death threats.
Bitch will fuck up. I'll kill you.
January 19th. 356 harassing phone calls. Death threats. January 21st. 139 harassing phone calls. Threats of physical violence.
We're going to move to physical attacks.
Email threats. January 22nd. 142 harassing phone calls. Bomb threat.
There's a bomb in the building.
January 23rd. 272 harassing phone calls. More bomb threats to 3 churches.
Someone is planning to bomb your building.
50,000 obscene emails. Threats of violence. January 24th. 663 harassing phone calls. Then, on January 25th, Anonymous reiterates its message of hate.
Shall be smitten down time and time again as we intend the absolute annihilation of the Scientology cult.
But later that same day, Anonymous attempts to change their
We would like
message.
to take this opportunity to clarify our objectives to the press and to the public. Allegations that Anonymous wishes to physically harm any human being as a part of our campaign against the cult of Scientology are patently untrue. As stated,
Yet they immediately escalate their assault. Arson threat.
We're going to burn your church down.
I'm going to burn you.
January 28th. Another bomb threat.
And we're going to bomb your building.
January 30th. Envelopes containing an unknown white powder resembling anthrax are delivered by mail to 24 churches. January 31st. Gunshots fired at church property. More obscene faxes. February 2nd. Vandalism. February 4th. Website attack. And on February 13th, Anonymous issues to the Church of Scientology their ultimate threat.
1 5-kilogram pack of nitroglycerin will detonate in the churches of Scientology. These explosives will be implanted in the most logical, however hidden location in each church. This will be the world's biggest terrorist attack on religion. Lives will be lost.
While claiming they are peaceful, in less than 3 weeks, Anonymous members made or encouraged 8,139 harassing or threatening phone calls, 3.6 million malicious emails, 141 million hits against church websites, 10 acts of vandalism, 22 bomb threats, and 8 death threats against members and officials of the Church of Scientology. These are the facts.
except for those are not the facts. One of the things that I do at the church that I currently go to is I oversee our security department. So I've actually studied in some great detail church security practices. And let me tell you, when I was on staff in Scientology, if there were actually bomb threats going on, and if actual bomb threats came in, there would have been things put in place in each and every one of the churches of Scientology along with their missions. And I never saw anything come across my desk that talked about what to do in the event of a bomb threat, what to do in the event of a harassing phone call coming in, what to do if we were suddenly raided by a group of angry Anons coming in and wanting to slash our throats. They didn't tell us any of that. And let me tell you, from where I stand right now on church security, if our church would receive a bomb threat, we would have stuff in place to address the bomb threat. How to handle the parishioners who are in there, how to handle the staff that are in there. But at the mission in Cleveland, we had nothing, which leads me to believe that this was just an attempt by the Church of Scientology to paint Anonymous in a bad light. So, after watching this video, I had to know what Anonymous was about. So I searched YouTube, and thank God for the internet and YouTube, because you can find anything on there. And I found the video that Anonymous released to the Church of Scientology. And one thing that I noticed is all the negative stuff that Anonymous said about the Church of Scientology in their video was wiped out of the version that the church played for us. So why was that? And I started to question, why didn't they want us to hear that? If they're trying to give us facts, as they stated at the end of the video, why are they altering what's being said to us? Let us hear it. So I started to do some research on the Church of Scientology. First thing I researched was the whole deaths in the Church of Scientology. What deaths occurred in the Church of Scientology? And I came across the Lisa McPherson website, and I read Lisa McPherson's story. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. That has to be something that's a rare extreme, something that's not going to happen to everyone, that this was just an accident. But the more and more I researched, the more and more that I found that this was happening everywhere. Deaths occurring in the Church of Scientology, or at Scientology front groups like Narconon, which next week we're going to talk about Narconon in great detail, because they've been on the forefront of the news for the past couple of weeks. So tune into that, and we'll talk about some more of the deaths in Scientology. But so, I'm researching Lisa McPherson, and I'm going through the internet, and I'm finding all these things about the lawsuit and her death, and I'm seeing the autopsy pictures, and I started to get a little bit worried. So, one of the things that I read was, in such and such a year, the Church of Scientology enacted the Lisa McPherson Clause. It's not known as that publicly, but that's what it's known to upper management. And that's in your contracts that you sign. So, I didn't come across this Lisa McPherson Clause until I went up to Buffalo. And when I was signing on for services in Buffalo, I encountered the Lisa McPherson Clause. And I started to get a little bit worried that maybe there's something to what this group Anonymous is putting out there. Maybe they actually stand for something that's good. So I started to research them a little bit more. And I saw that this little band of internet activists was able to pull off the widest, largest protests worldwide, coordinated on a single day, and that they actually stand for something. So the one day that they were out protesting in front of the Cleveland Mission, I started asking questions about Anonymous. And the line that I was told, and I shared this in the previous broadcast, was that Anonymous was out there protesting us because they were getting paid by the psychiatric industry and the pharmaceutical industry to do so. Because in Scientology, we have the science And we have the ability to cure people of any of their psychiatric illnesses. And if we cure them, psychiatrists are going to lose money and they're going to be out of work. And the pharmaceutical industry is going to lose money and be out of work. So they have to do everything that they can to bring down the Church of Scientology. After all, that's why we were raided by the FDA back in the 60s, because they were trying to shut us down because we had the technology and we had the ability to fix the world that no one else had, and they were threatened by it. And if you listen to Ron's Journal 1967, you hear him talk a little bit about this, and I opened with his opening from Ron's Journal 67 today. But he talks that there are 12 people, mainly in the banking industry, but also in the pharmaceutical industry and the psychiatric industry, that are controlling all the evil that happens in the world today. So as they're explaining this to me, I'm starting to buy into it. And they're starting to show me this message to, or anonymous exposed video, and I'm like, okay, so they're against what we're doing. And this is what I start to believe for a brief time, until I start researching it. And I'm going out, and I'm researching, and I'm finding everything that I've been talking about. And I'm starting to get worried, because now I've gone from a mission where it's pretty innocent. There are 3 or 4 people on staff, plus myself. I'm doing basic introductory courses that aren't requiring me to sign over that, hey, if my wife has me committed, the church is going to come get me out. And they're going to have complete control over my treatment from that point. And that if I happen to die or get sick or seriously hurt in any of my treatment or courses, that I won't sue the church, that my family won't sue the church, that my friends won't sue the church. So why were they so worried about that if there was nothing to hide? It's because there was something to hide. And the only way that we as a general public, or we as public Scientologists, or we as ex-staff members were able to find any of this out was because of the group of Anonymous. This group of internet activists who were paid by big pharmaceuticals and psychiatry, and I say that in jest, but this group of people risked exposing themselves, risk going to jail by leaking information that the church has kept secret and hidden for so long. And then I was sent a video by my cousin, because he was against me being in Scientology, and he's like, you gotta watch this video. And it was South Park. And I don't really watch South Park, but because this South Park episode was dealing with Scientology, I wanted to watch it. So then I got to see what we as Scientologists believe according to South Park. And I took it with a grain of salt at first, until I sat down in front of my computer and I Googled Xenu OT3 Ring of Fire. And again, I came across a site that had some leaks on it. And on this site was the handwritten notes from L. Ron Hubbard explaining Xenu and the space opera story. So I'm like, okay, anyone could forge that. But then as I scrolled down a little bit further, there was an audio. And it was an audio clip of LRH talking about Xenu. How did that all get onto the internet? It was through the people of Anonymous putting it on there because they cared enough, and they cared more about the people who were in Scientology than the people we as Scientologists trusted to care about us. So even if they were paid by the pharmaceutical industry and the psychiatry industry, even if they were paid $50 a day to stand out there and protest, to get people out of something that's so dangerous that you have to sign a contract saying that you're not going to sue the church if you die, you're going to allow the church to come and get you out of psychiatric ward and be responsible for your care, then that's a good thing. Because the church I go to now, I don't have to sign any contracts that says if my wife has me committed, the church is going to come and get me out, and they're going to be responsible for my well-being and my treatment. And then I don't sign anything that says if I get hurt at church or if I get shot and killed at church, that I'm not going to sue the church. Because a real church doesn't worry about lawsuits. But a church that's focused on money and money alone, they're going to do everything that they can to prevent themselves from getting sued, even if they're putting you in danger. And that's what the Church of Scientology does. They put you in danger, but they expect you to sign away any recourse that you have against them. But I wouldn't know this, and no one else would know this, if it wasn't for that group of internet activists known as Anonymous. So I applaud Anonymous. And I thank them for being one of the driving forces that helped get me out. And I thank them that because of the information that's out there, and their willingness to spend their time for free to go out with signs explaining what Scientology is and what the dangers of Scientology are, as those executives and staff members are walking by to go on course or to go on post, you're putting a seed in them. And when they go home, they're going to check it out. And we've seen that they go home and check it out. The exodus of high-ranking staff members and executives, the exodus of celebrities, is because of the work that Anonymous does. And I forgot to thank my cousin for help getting me out. He just texted me to remind me. So, Chuck, thank you for help getting me out. And thank you to South Park for everything you did to get me out. So as I was researching more and more, there were a bunch of YouTube videos that kept on coming up. And there were two songs, believe it or not, that really stood out with me. And it was because of these two songs that I kept on coming across every time I would watch a video about an anonymous raid on the Church of Scientology. These songs just kept on coming up. So as we transition over to our question and answer portion of the program, I'm going to play one of the songs for you. And then if you have any questions, you could tweet them to me, or you could use the chat feature here on Spreaker. So let's go ahead and listen to the song.
This was a triumph. I'm making a note here, huge success. It's hard to overstate our satisfaction. Anonymous Legion, we do what we must because we can. For the good of all of us, especially those who are dead, we'll just keep on pushing till you make a mistake, and we'll keep on trying till we run out of faith. And the purpose always, revolution will begin for the people who are still inside. We're not even angry, we're being so sincere right now. Even though you broke their minds, killed them, you tore them to pieces, and you made them all
Okay, now as we transition over into our question and answer segment of Cult Watch, I want to do something with every broadcast to enlighten those of you who may not be as enlightened as most Scientologists are. And what I'm going to do is each and every broadcast is take a word from the Dianetics and Scientology Technical Dictionary and enlighten you. So today's word is the Markab Confederacy. And what that is it's various planets united into a very vast civilization which has come forward up through the last 200,000 years. It's formed out of the fragments of earlier civilizations. Now, in the last 10,000 years, they have gone on with a sort of decadent, kicked-in-the-head civilization that contains automobiles, business suits, fedora hats, telephones, and spaceships. A civilization which looks almost like an exact duplicate, but is worse off than the current U.S. civilization. So now, you are as enlightened as a Scientologist. Stay tuned next week for another word out of the Dianetics and Scientology Technical Dictionary. So I'm going to go to some questions now. And one of the questions that I got last night from the Reaching for the Tipping Point message board goes like this. Regarding the waking up process many folks go through once they get unattached from the Church of Scientology and reality sets in, the gist of those first-hand accounts usually follow the pattern of, I knew it was bad for such and such a reason, so I left. Then afterward I found out this, that, or other revelations, and suddenly, wow, holy Xenu, it was so much worse than I ever realized. And yes, that is the exact process that I went through. And I think that anyone goes through when they escape any cult. I kind of knew that it was starting to get bad when I came across that Lisa McPherson clause up at Buffalo, and I had that reg cycle that lasted 9 hours, and then I would have the endless reg cycles on the phone with Buffalo, from the free winds trying to get me to go down there, from Flag trying to get me to do services down there. So I'm like, okay, they're really after my money. And here are 3 organizations who are trying to get my money for the same services that all charge different prices for different reasons. So that was the first thing that I thought was bad, along with the Lisa McPherson tragedy. As I got out, I started to research a lot more the tragedies that are associated with Scientology. And another one that I came across when I was doing a general search for Buffalo Scientology was the fact that one of the OTs up in Buffalo was murdered by her son, and she was an exec at the church, and her son was suffering from some sort of psychiatric illness, and instead of getting him proper treatment, they sent him to a Scientology doctor who pumped him full of vitamins and didn't do much else for him. And he eventually snapped and killed his mother. So that was the second point that I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. So here's 2 cases where people have had psychiatric breaks that I know of, that I'm seeing, because the Church of Scientology is refusing them proper care, and it ended in a death of either that person or someone related or close to that person. And then my holy Xenu moment was when I came across Mike Render's blog and Marty Rathbun's blog, kind of when the Debbie Cook email came out, and the Truth Rundown in the St. Petersburg Times, once I started reading all that and seeing like what it was like in upper management and what was going on, I was shocked. Because here's this man, David Miscavige, who we all held in high esteem because he was LRH's successor, but to find out that he himself is psychotic and fits the definition of a suppressive person, that was really crazy. And so as I was doing research about the abuse inside the Church of Scientology, I came across a YouTube user by the name of Angry Gay Pope, who goes around and protests the Church of Scientology. Well, he has lots of videos of different Scientology facilities and different Scientologists, and he suffered through some of their lawsuit stuff that they like to do. So I really saw what Scientology was from that standpoint. And it wasn't until I got out that I was able to see that. Another question: at what point in time in Scientology training do the Cylons start hearing space opera stories? Well, I actually heard my first introduction to the space opera stories when I was just finishing up the Dianetics Auditor course. They were sharing with me about what happens to us after we die. And so they sat me down and they were talking to me, and they were like, what do you think happens to you when you die? And I said, well, we die and our souls either go to heaven or hell. And they said, well, that's not entirely true. What happens to you when you die is your spirit or your soul's released from your body, and it shoots out into space, trying to escape Earth, because Earth is kind of like a prison planet. So as you're shot out there, you get sucked into a brainwashing station. Now, at this time, I didn't realize I was sitting in the brainwashing station. But, so you get sucked into a brainwashing station either on the moon or on Mars. And they wipe all your memory. Then they shoot you back down to Earth, and you go into another body. And I'm like, holy crap, that sounds like Star Trek. And I like Star Trek, so it must be right. So that was really my first introduction to it. Later on, when I shared that story with a friend of mine who's in the Sea Org, they had me fill out a knowledge report on it and report that, because I should have never been given that information, being as new as a Scientologist as I was. So, yeah, that was my first experience with anything that was related to the space opera, and that just reinforced everything that I saw in the South Park episode, and the stuff that I was seeing on the internet after I got out, was the fact that, I was hearing that right from the horse's mouth. Now, another question is there anything that you regret about your time in Scientology? Yes. All of my time in Scientology. The money that I spent, the fact that I've had to change my number so many times to escape them. As a matter of fact, I was talking to that Sea Org friend of mine last night, and I actually have a way that I route my cell phone number through the internet, so they don't actually have my real phone number. That way, it doesn't get dispersed to the central files for Scientology, and I get bothered by them constantly. But yeah, in general, was the fact that I was spending maybe 40, 50, 60 hours a week up there. Every weekend that I had, I would be up there from open to close, either on course or handing out promo. They would have me go door to door in the suburbs up there in Cleveland, and just put flyers in people's door about Dianetics or books, different basic books. So it just took a lot of time away from what I should have been spending my time on, and it also took a lot of money from us to go up through the courses. Then the next question: did we have OT8s at Buffalo or Cleveland? How were they regarded? At Cleveland, no. The furthest that anyone had gone up at Cleveland was clear. No one traveled up the bridge any further than that, only because you spend so much time trying to get your mission going and get people into the mission. You really don't have time for anything else. And then the basics came out, and they were pushing everyone to get through the basics, and they still do this. Like, you'll get an email that says, like, get through the basics by LRH's birthday, and you get a special commendation. So, like, everyone was so focused on the basics that they're stalled out on the bridge. And now their big push is to get people through the congresses and the advanced clinical courses that people aren't actually moving up the bridge. They're focused on the next big thing. And now with this golden age of Tech 2 that's coming out, there are going to be more stallouts on the bridge because people are going to have to retake courses that they've already taken and paid for. So, no, we didn't have OT8s in Cleveland, but there were some OT8s up in Buffalo, and they are regarded like royalty. We actually had an OT8 from Buffalo come down to the Cleveland Mission and talk to us about proper postulates to get money to be on the bridge and be either auditing full-time or training full-time. So when they came in, you rolled out the red carpet. You just did everything that you could, and they are the Scientology royalty at that level, and I would put them right below the celebrities because they use the OTs for everything. Those are their big fundraisers, the OTs, and they send them out to the missions and the orgs to raise money to make sure that they have the money for the orgs to go ideal. But yeah, so you treated them like if there are Catholics listening, it would be almost like you had a bishop in there, and you gave them that kind of respect. Because after all, those were the people who were going to bypass the implant stations and be able to make it, hopefully, when they died. Next question. Typically, how many knowledge reports does a typical Scientology write? What things need to be reported? Well, if you are a good Scientologist, you are filling out knowledge reports every single day, every single time you encounter someone, because there's always something going on in your circle of influence that you need to report to the church that they need to be aware of. If you are a Scientologist who uses social media, I don't know how you could have a profession outside of writing knowledge reports about all the N theta that is out there on social media today, especially Facebook. I hear there's a bunch of SPs that have actually formed a group on Facebook and are making it pretty sucky for the Cylons that are on Facebook. Did I leave any money on account when I left? Yes, I actually have some money in Buffalo right now. So when Buffalo came in last month, they were trying to get me back on my basic courses. I have money on account there that would cover the next couple courses. It's maybe like $100. It's not a lot at all. Nothing to ask for a refund over. And I'm actually technically still mid-course in Buffalo. Yeah, so I did have money. And most Scientologists, when they leave, they do have money on account at their mission or org from when they left. And That's why usually you'll get hit with a freeloader's bill when you leave. That way they could absorb any money that that you have on the account legally without you being able to complain too much about it. Are there any other questions? My wife just texted me and she says she wants a refund of $100. Let's see. What was my experience of disconnection? I'm actually... This is funny. I thought I was going to get declared yesterday because I was in the middle of a communication cycle with my friend in the Sea Org, and like right in the middle of us talking back and forth, I stopped hearing from them. And so I thought for sure that I had finally been declared as a suppressive person, but I have not, because like I said, I spent like 3 hours on the phone last night with my friend in the Sea Org talking, catching up on life. So the only people that have disconnected from me, that consider me a suppressive person, are the people in Cleveland. And not saying that I've done anything recently to antagonize them, but if you check out my post on why we protest, you'll see why they want nothing to do with me. Does that answer your question? I hope so. Yeah, I finished a course, an extension course this year at Flag. It was actually the Science of Survival Lectures extension course. It was in January of 2013 that I finished that. One of the reasons why I finished it, because they email me constantly, and I've changed my email address a number of times, and I've changed my phone number a number of times, and like I'm just at the point where I don't want to change that stuff anymore. So I figured it would be easier to finish that cycle of action, as they would say in Scientology. Just finish the course and get it over with. That way they stop bothering me. And they have. Once I finished it, I mean, I might get an email once in a while that says, purchase your next course through us. But other than that, like, I'm not getting hounded. I do still get postcards once a week from Buffalo, which I'll scan one of those and post those, from the extension course supervisor asking me to submit my lesson for that week. And I'll get those until I finish my my course in Buffalo. It's costing them postage, so if they want to keep on doing that, then they could keep on doing that. But I wanted to be able to finish it, to get it done and over with. That way, the constant them asking for a refund will stop that real quick. So I figured finishing it would get them off my back, which it has. Like I said, I only get something maybe once a month from them now to get back on course. Another question that came in: what would I recommend to Anonymous as they continue to protest, and how do I think they are most effective? What I would recommend to Anonymous, one, is don't stop protesting. Even if it's a once a month thing, continue the protest. And the thing that I found most effective, don't talk about the Xenu thing, because then they're just going to blow you off as someone who's crazy, because most Scientologists have never heard of Xenu. They don't know that he exists. So saying that like they're a flying saucer alien cult isn't going to sit well with most Scientologists. The thing that I would focus in on are stuff that can be verified without putting them into a like a category of sci-fi church people, even though that's what they are. And what I mean by that is, like, talk about disconnection on your your protest signs. Talk about the families that are impacted on your protest signs. If you have anyone in your anonymous circle who is a former staff member who's not afraid to be identified, or who is a parent or a loved one of someone who's been disconnected, have them there, because they're able to speak with authority when they talk about it. They've experienced it firsthand, and especially if they're from that local org or that mission, then they're going to be able to reach people. But the thing that's most important is you want to have facts. You don't want to make fun of them, because that's going to put people in the defensive real quick. You want to talk about the facts, and you want to talk about some of the dangers with, like, the disconnection, the fact that it causes people to go broke and stuff like that, because they're experiencing it. They may have experienced, hey, you're not allowed to talk to so-and-so anymore because they're no longer a Scientologist, or they may be considering taking out a second mortgage on their house to pay for that next level of auditing or that next level of training. When you hit people with stuff that they're experiencing, then it's gonna sit with them, and they're gonna think on it. Did I ever encounter a Scientologist who seemed so messed up or out of sorts that it raised questions about the tech not helping? Yes, and we're going to talk about this in great detail when we talk about WISE, which is the World Institute of Scientology Enterprises, in the upcoming weeks. But there was a Scientologist in particular that my wife worked for. She was a dentist, or still is a dentist, in Cleveland. The Church of Scientology actually got my wife the job. She was making like $15 an hour. And my wife is shuddering because I'm talking about this. But what would happen is this lady, they sent down to Flag to do her L's. Now, the L's are something that you can only receive at Flag. They're very expensive. And it's not for people who are very, very low on the bridge, which this person is. However, she's donated over $1 million to the IAS, and they know that she has money. So they say, hey, come down to Flag, come do your L's. So she goes down to Flag to do her L's, and basically goes crazy. She's so far off the deep end that she makes no sense whatsoever. And my wife experienced this more than I did. My only encounters with her were when she would come into the mission and I was in the middle of doing a Sunday service, and she would stop it to call attention to the Citizens Commission for Human Rights, which is another front group that we're going to be talking about in the future. But she's very involved with them, and she would just do really crazy things. So I asked them, why is she so messed up? And they explained to me, and by them, I mean the mission holders up at Cleveland, explained to me is that it's because she was exposed to tech too soon, and that's what caused her to kind of go crazy. And so I saw that as a tech failure. And so does that answer your question? Like, I saw that as tech not helping someone, but hurting. And yeah, that absolutely raised questions to the validity of things. But at this point, I just finished the volunteer minister's course, and this individual asked me to come in and do some ethics training with her staff. And again, I'll talk about that when we talk a bit about WISE and what they do for businesses. let's see. Yeah, that is very interesting. And I had never heard that before because, again, my experience was mainly in Dianetics, and it wasn't on the Scientology end of the religion, so it was more on the Dianetic side. And to be honest with you, Dianetics has just enough truth in it that it seems legitimate. So I was seeing things in a more positive light at that point in time, because I saw while I was auditing people that the Dianetics seemed to be working for them, and that they were having wins with their Dianetics auditing. Yes, I did encounter, speaking of the same person, someone who was denied auditing for ethics training. That dentist was actually denied her auditing and training at Flag. She would either do services in Cincinnati or Flag. She wouldn't do them anywhere else. And Flag actually made her go through some major ethics repair before she was allowed to go back down there, because what happened is she was in the middle of a lawsuit. So she hurt one of her patients, and they were suing her, and her insurance was only covering so much of it. Well, she had just written a check for $1 million to the IAS, and she wanted that money back. And we know how things go when you ask for money back in Scientology. It's not something that's looked on, or it's not something that they approve of. So here she is asking for $1 million back from her donation to the IAS, and they weren't happy. So they said she was out ethics, and in order for her to get back in the good graces, she had to do an ethics repair at the Cincinnati org before she was permitted to go back to Flag. And if I'm not mistaken, that was another $30,000-$40,000 for her, just in order for her to go back to do services at Flag. And that's any service at Flag. If she wanted to do an extension course, she would have to go through that ethics repair in order to do that extension course. So yes, they do. If your ethics are not in, as they say, if you're not a good little Scientologist, then they are not going to allow you to do services there at any of their orgs. Ethics is very big in the Church of Scientology, and I mean, they'll find anything in your life to say that you're out ethics, just in order to get you to go through some sort of ethics repair on their end. Are there any other questions? All right, well, as there are no other questions, I do want to thank you guys for tuning in today. I think was another great program. I encourage you to check us out on the web at brentw.org. If you want to submit any questions for next week's program on Narconon, or any testimonies or experiences that you've had with Narconon, email us at wofr@brentw.org. Also, we are completely supported by our members, so if you would like to help keep us on the air, I would encourage you to go to brentw.org, click the donate button. It's $30 a month to put this program on. We would appreciate any help that you could do with that. And I'm going to leave you with that second song that had the most impact on me, that I heard every time I saw Anonymous outside of our mission, and every time I watched any of the Anonymous Raids videos. So just listen for another few minutes more. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend.